Oh, I hope everybody can hear me okay. My name is Corey Dunham, and I appreciate you being here for this 10 leadership skills for 2024 and beyond. We might be having some tough technical difficulties, but we'll do the best we can here. Just to give you an intro, and I'll also be reading off some of this and some of these items because I want to make sure I don't miss anything. And I'll be referring to my notes also. So, just as an intro, my name is Corey Dunham. I'm a faith based leadership development and coach and mentor. I help leaders restore their passions when they feel empty or drained. Many executives, entrepreneurs, and fractional professionals are overwhelmed with juggling their careers, their businesses, their families, and have stopped pursuing their passions and basically living a bland life. And if you're like me, it seemed like I was getting further behind on what I thought life should look like. I've wasted so much time and several opportunities to having a fulfilling life, but made excuses time and time again as to why I'm not successful as I thought I should be, or that I'm not one of those people deserving of an amazing life that included both my faith, family, and vocation. I was born in Chicago, grew up in Michigan, very introverted, and went to Eastern Michigan University. Now have a wonderful wife of 24 years and three young adult kids who are all still living at home, but very successful and productive. And the reason why I'm passionate about helping people is because I feel that playing a small part or small role in life just isn't what we were designed or what I wasn't designed to do. And really, for me, not living up to what God's potential and image was for me. Never really committing to myself or the life I should have. And have found some principles and concepts that have transformed my life, which I'm going to share with you now. So we're going to move right on just to get started with everything here. First, kind of give you that introduction. And the first item I want to talk about, number 10, is being driven and motivated. This is one of the key things which a lot of people think about when it comes to leadership. And you have to realize, not everybody's driven and motivated and maybe doesn't have those skill sets, but it's important to be driven and motivated because you're going to come across things in life that holds you up, distractions, disappointing things, life events, in many different ways, whether that's having kids, whether that's a death in the family, business, change of jobs, change of occupation, whatever it may be. And for me, I know people have thought of me as driven, but inside I've been afraid of my shadow and fear of doing sales and all different types of things. Even when I was younger, not being willing to ask girls out. And I never really did that. So I always hung around in an environment where it allowed for that kind of relationship development to happen. And of course, I also got sick while trying to train for pilot, becoming a private pilot. And I was embarrassed with that, didn't really ask for help, all different types of things, and also go through another example of just was kind of stupid on my part in the past when going to Eastern Michigan University. Number 9 is basically you want to command today. You want to be action oriented. You want to be focused. You want to reduce distractions. And you want to make sure that what the activities that you put your energies towards, since we're limited on time, are really in your priority list. Things that are priorities. We have a million things to do. We could do any particular day, but you can only focus on a handful that you really want to get done, and all the rest need to come behind that. Some examples for me is that I've woken up many days dogged tired and just didn't have a direction, didn't have a plan for today, and have wasted a ton of time, a ton of years and decades. And so I had to learn also different times of the day when I had my best thinking, my best energy. You have to really manage that, learn yourself. And that's it's not a one size fits all, but you have to figure that out for you and how you tend to have the most energy and do the best you can with that strategizing. And also too, I want to say, if anything I'm saying here is resonating with you, and that you want to talk more about leadership or increasing your level of leadership skills, message me or type in the chat leadership. Awesome. Number 8, redefine failure. So this is all about mindset and the stories you tell yourself. Because for me, when I was growing up, I did not want to make mistakes. I got laughed at in school. My other friends got laughed at. I think from a young age, I've taken that on into my adulthood, a lot of different childhood beliefs and mindsets. And I did not want to fail, didn't want to try anything. So I was very limited in what I could accomplish. Because I'm like, ooh, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to look stupid. Come to find out, those are stories I've been telling myself for the last 30, 40 years. And also, I didn't raise my hand in school. So the example of going to Eastern Michigan University about 30 years ago, I took calculus and I failed it, got a D plus. Well, what I ended up doing is retaking that class. I didn't raise my hand to ask any questions. I didn't get any more help or coaching for anything on the second time around either. I did the exact same thing. And I thought, oh, because I've already done this, I should probably catch up on a little bit more things. I didn't. I got a D plus again, totally failed it. So some of those old stories you tell yourself and and what stories you have in your mind are going to be so key and critical to you having success. And sometimes you got to figure out what are those limiting beliefs that we need to change. Number 7, collaboration. It's important to collaborate with people. You have and can achieve great success. However, there's probably a lot more success that you probably can achieve if you're willing to collaborate. And I've been told, and I tell people, you're one conversation away from some great things happening. And I have stories I could tell you just in the last 12 months of conversations that I've had with people that have landed me speaking gigs, that have allowed me to start a podcast, to do other things, and also be on podcasts, and many, many, many other opportunities out there. But you have to be willing to, once again, collaborate and be willing to have that conversation and be courageous about it. Currently, I'm on 2 different board of directors of 2 different business groups, and I've had to learn to ask for help, ask, and also make sure that the right people are in the right seats. Because one of them I am the president of, and I have some decision making I have to do on some of those. And it's an all, both of those are all volunteer boards, so none of those are paid. So I can't just boss people around. I have to figure out collaboration and communication. Another area is locus of control. Every day we have decisions to make. Energy that we have, limited amount of energy, you can only use that for so many things. And so it's so important to know what you can control and what you can't control. Some of the areas that I've looked at that I can't control are my family members, my wife, and a number of different things in business that I can't control. So I've really had to focus on that. And if we focus on things you can't control, you're just wasting time and you're beating your head up against a wall. So I know our particular business, actually I have several businesses. Another one that we have is a marketing business, but my stepfather started that back in 1980, so 40 plus years ago. And we did extremely well, even through the pandemic, through 2020. But then in 22 and 2023 last year, we have lost quite a bit of money, basically in these last 2 years. And that's after 42 years of being in business. So I've had to figure out what am I in control over. So let's start innovating. Let's start learning new skill sets. Let's start targeting different things for that marketing business. Along with this is also how I've developed more and more of my coaching and mentoring that's faith-based. And so some of these challenges can be so helpful in these many different areas. And also too, I've been married for 24 years. My 20-plus-year-old marriage, and I hate to even admit this, but I know it's probably going to help some people. My 20-plus-year marriage is not the perfect marriage, and we had a lot of things, and currently have a lot of things we still need to work on in both repairing our marriage, building up our marriage, because we haven't done the things we need to do. And I know years ago, I had opportunities to go into marriage counseling, but I had too much of an ego that I wouldn't let aside. But now that we're at a point where we're almost empty nesters, and I want to develop a strong relationship with my wife, that things are starting to pop up here and there. Some things I was aware of, some things I wasn't, but now I've been willing to humble myself for marriage counseling just in this last year, and also personal counseling and therapy I'm going through. And that's another thing I know that a lot of people aren't willing to communicate and talk when they need help. So help yourself to be helped in situations where you really need to help, and don't wait till it's too late. We always say that, but many times we wait until there's some catastrophe or something goes on. Number 5 is persistence. You want to be persistent in everything you do. You have to have persistence, because overnight success, I just heard an example, like if you think of Tiger Woods in golfing, overnight success for him took about 20 years. He was successful or pro, I believe, in 19 or 21 years old, but he started golfing when he was 3 years old. So that took him literally about 20 years to have that success. And a lot of times with our day and age, with our society of having things right now, many times it's built into our culture that we can get things right now, instant messaging. We can get microwave, we can get lottery tickets, try to win the lottery. And how many people win that? It's what, 1 in 14 billion or something like that, something crazy. So you really have to stay persistent at those things that are important to you, and realize it's going to take a work ethic. You're going to have to fall in love with the work, the repetition, and also have long-term thinking when it comes to that. One instance for me, which I thought was pretty funny, as I told you earlier, got a pilot's license, a private pilot's license, non-commercial. But I got that back 31 years ago, I think. And I was like, wow, this is pretty amazing. I'm surprised they even gave it to me, because I don't have the confidence in myself. But I did everything that was needed to get that license. And then a couple decades later, I'm like, hey, I'd like to get another endorsement on top of my license, which is tail wheel endorsement, trying to fly something like a biplane. If you think of a biplane that has the wheel in the back, it's something like that, a tail wheel. And now you have to get an extra training and endorsement, because those airplanes are very unstable, and they no longer are being flown very much. So not too much experience. So I got my tail wheel endorsement, but when I was training for it, I'm like, oh, I can do this probably in 3 weeks. Well, 9 months later, I think I got my tail wheel license. So I had to be persistent, had to stay focused on my goal, and realize, hey, is this something I really want to do and learn? I know I can get it. And then along the way, of course, I saw glimpses of success. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm starting to get this. And of course, that fueled some of my passion to get that done. And once again, if anything's resonating with you here, or if you'd like to talk more about your leadership skills and going to the next level with those, type of leader or leadership in the chat, or message me on leadership. Number 4, lead by example. One of these areas is you need to serve unconditionally. Learn to serve without expecting anything in return. When I found I used to expect things in return, there was always this mental counting. Oh, this person owes me, I owe them, and all this dance you have to do. But if you're always being generous and abundant and giving just because it's the right thing to do, I've seen it time and time again, and I've been told this, that generosity and abundance is going to come back to you, and not necessarily from that person or thing, but it could come in many different ways, and people are going to learn your character and how abundant you are and how generous you are. And plus, that's one way to develop trust. I've learned that both in marketing and with relationships. The way to develop trust is to give, and think of the other person. So that's so important. Also, your willingness to be last instead of being first all the time. Be proactive, make commitments and sacrifice. One thing I'm recently doing in my church is setting up small groups. We've had several people, I was hearing conversations that have been a part of our church for a couple years and have been interested in a small group so they can meet up on a regular basis, study the Bible, meet new people. And not too much has been done, I think, because people are just overwhelmed with their time, and the staff at our church. We have great staff. And all of a sudden, God gave me the motivation and interest. It's like, hey, I don't work for the church, I'm just a member, but I can set up some small groups. And that was just back in October when I got the idea and started having conversations with people and collaborating. And all of a sudden, at this point, we've got 3 groups that were starting up just 5-6 months later. So I'm pretty impressed with that, not by what I've done, but just how God has worked in my life, just to listen to his calling and do what's right. Just do what's right and lead by example. Also, to number 3, master yourself. And this is mind and body. It's so important to master yourself in all these different areas. And I've been doing personal development for 30 plus years in the early 90s, when one of my first access to personal development was Anthony Robbins, is what he went by initially, back in the day when he was pretty much getting started, just several years after, I believe. But now he goes by Tony Robbins. I think he's the most successful or #1 coach in the world at this point in time. But even with that, I felt great with all this great personal development, and I didn't take any action. I was so afraid to take action to get rejection because I thought that was going to harm me and hurt me. But come to find out, taking action, having learning experiences, reframing what the idea of what failure means. So I don't really have any failures anymore. I have learning experiences. I have new things I'm doing and I have learning experiences. And I no longer have failures. And almost every time and everything, if I persist with that, it keeps me in the right direction. And my skill set goes up, my confidence goes up, and it wants me or allows me to do more. And I want to do more. So really mastering your mind and your body. That's also exercise, of course, discipline, mindfulness, developing small daily habits, including like for me, for example, I've developed just in the last 2 months, this excellent morning routine that I've tried to develop a morning routine for years. And come to find out your morning routine is dictated by your evening routine. So that's an important thing to know there. One thing I do with my morning routine, whether it's 5 minutes or it's 45 minutes, ideally 45, but even if it's 5 minutes, I still pick up the Bible and read and pray. I pick up 2 other books, read. If I only have time enough to read a paragraph, I'll do that to make progress in that book. And I have finished a book just a month or 2 ago that I couldn't read for like 2 years. I just kept making excuses, never making time for it, but I developed a small daily habit. And all of a sudden I finished that book, like I said, a month or 2 ago. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just remembered this book I've been trying to start, want to make progress in, and I finished it. So now I'm on 2 other books that I'm focusing on. So the other piece of my morning routine is also exercising with weights. And then some other areas of mastering myself, my body, my mind is at work. I work at a separate office, and I used to bring junk food, candy bars, popcorn, all different kinds of stuff because they were so tasty and give me chocolate. But now I bring in 99% of the time for the last several years, I bring in vegetables and fruit and healthier things, protein bars and things like that, that can help me. So you can do this. You can master things, and especially if you start off with small habits and don't try to grow too quickly from those. Number 2 is purpose. You got to have your purpose, and you got to know where you come from, what's most important to you, what you're here for. And that's something that it takes time. You don't just develop your purpose because you sit down one day and you say, hey, this is what's important to me. This takes time to reiterate, iterate, make changes, keep working on it, keep thinking, because too, life changes happen. 20 years ago, before I had my first child, I wasn't thinking about children necessarily. I was a little bit, but I wasn't focusing on them as a priority. So I had different focuses at the time. Now with my kids, those different types of things, it's been pretty amazing what my purpose is. You also got to stay connected to your values, your goals, your mission. And what is that? Well, once again, you're not just going to get it overnight, and you might, but if you do, look at that once a week, look at that once a month to see if those priorities are still the same for whatever's going on in your life, because things change, and that's so important. One of the coolest things is that for my purpose, I knew getting out of debt was a big thing. So for the most part, I've tried to stay out of debt most of my life. But just last year in 2023, we paid off our house in 12 years. We were still supposed to be paying on that until 2041, which is pretty crazy. But we paid that off back in May, just about a year ago, 2023, and that feels awesome. And, we're not wealthy at this point by any means, but it feels great to have that as part of my purpose, and also to set an example for my kids, for other people, for colleagues, for friends, that being out of debt. So we haven't paid literally interest, I'm pretty sure, on anything other than our house. We haven't paid debt on interest for car loans or credit cards for the last 5+ years. It might be closer to 10, but I don't know for sure. But it's pretty cool feeling to be out of debt with that house payment too. And that took focus, that took sacrifice, that took purpose. It took being driven and motivated and all those types of things. And I want to say just again, if anything here is resonating with you, type leadership in the chat or message me later, the word leadership. So you got to really know your purpose. Number one, you got to know your identity and where you come from. This was huge for me. For decades, I'm a Christian. My belief is in God and Christ, my Savior, and I have distanced myself from that piece. Some of you may not be Christians or may not be religious or spiritual, whatever you want to call it. But you have to know where you come from. And when you know that, at least in my case, I come from God, it's like, man, I come from a spirit of abundance. I've been saved by Christ from several different things, sin, death, and the devil. And like I said before, I've used to deny myself some of those things, which it was a calling inside of me for a long time that I said, ooh, I'm going to keep business and my faith separate. I found that didn't work for me. So you have to figure out what works for you. And I've been able to live more authentically as to who I am and knowing where I came from. Of course, my last name is Dunham. I'm also a Dunham. That's important. My name, the legacy I leave, the example I leave for my kids, people in my neighborhood, people I associate with. That's so important. And also too, since I denied my faith or separated for so long, I felt like Peter. Those of you who know the Bible, one of the disciples, Peter, who denied Jesus 3 times before Jesus was crucified. He's like, I don't know him. I don't know him, even though he's one of his best buddies, one of the top 12 there. But since 2023, just in the last year, I've really started to lean into who I really am and why I am and why I do what I do. And like I said, it's because of my faith in God and my Savior Christ. And it's important for you to live truthfully and dig deep. Take the time to figure out who you are and what kind of stories are you telling yourself and have been telling yourself. So it's important to know, am I telling myself limiting beliefs? Am I doing the right things? Are these really my values, my passion, my purpose? And a lot of that comes from your identity and where you come from. But if you think I would think, if you just thought you were plopped here on earth, you don't really have a purpose. You're just supposed to go to work 8 to 10 hours a day, call it a day, and be discouraged, not be really ready to advance your life, then yeah, that's going to be pretty abysmal existence. And that's kind of what I was experiencing by not really pursuing my passions and not really digging deep as to who I am, what my purpose is, what impact I can have, and to stop living such, I felt a small part in life and not really doing what I was capable of doing. So these are some of the leadership skills that I think they can help. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to a real quick recap, and then we're going to go to a question and answer. So just a real quick recap. Number 10, you want to be driven and motivated, firm your beliefs, got to have a positive attitude, set high expectations, command today, take action on the things you learn with purpose, be present, have reflection on if what you did today is working, and improve on that the next day. Redefine your failures and the stories you tell yourself. Embrace any failures that you have and reframe what that means. It's not failures. You don't fail if you keep trying, but it's an opportunity to learn and growth. And then share these stories with other people. Reach out. I don't really believe in giving handouts, but I believe in giving hand ups. So giving a hand up is somebody who's willing to take control for themselves. And sometimes you might end up giving a handout if somebody's not willing to be dedicated and committed to their own success. Number 7, collaboration makes you have those conversations. Most things I've noticed in the last 12 months, especially when I've been focusing, is the conversations I have. People pull me into their environments. I've started new things and have been innovating in many different ways. And then you also have to show empathy. Be willing to get down in the deep stuff with people. Be willing to have a conversation and not just always have your agenda being proven in whatever's going on. And you want to provide, ideally, if you're in a business environment, even if maybe you're just an employee and you don't feel like you have management privileges, still be in a coaching environment. Share what you've learned in these different areas. And then also, number 6, locus of control. Know what you can control and what you can't. Essentialism just basically means simplify things. A lot of people have things that we worship, other gods, so to speak, and many times that could be YouTube. That could be exercising 5 hours a day. That could be eating the wrong things or too much. It could be our girlfriend, could be our spouse, whatever it may be. You might have other things that you're kind of worshiping. So you want to simplify your approach. You want to know what you can control and what you can't. And one of the best things that I was reminded of is this serenity prayer that says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And once again, be persistent. You have to think long term and change your mindset. You have to lead by example, serve others unconditionally, demonstrate commitment and sacrifice, be proactive, and be an example to other people. Know what you want, and sometimes it has to be you that does things first. You come up with the ideas. You have to be the one to make the commitment to start off whatever it is you need to start or want to do, just like I did with the recently in the last 6 months with being the small group setter upper person, whatever you want to call me. But I'm not once again, people have asked me, oh, do you work for the church? No, I don't work for the church. It's the right thing to do. People need this and people want community. So why wouldn't I do it? And I also got to meet some new people, create more connection base, expand people I know and get to know them well. Number 3, master yourself, mind, and body. This takes practice. Several ways you can do this is through mindfulness practices, which could be exercise, could be meditation, could be prayer, could be having a journal that you write into. I used to think writing a journal was ridiculous. I'm like, I'm not writing in a diary. Come to find out, a lot of business people do this. It helps you both to reflect and to be very present with what's going on and in tune with the different things that are going on. You also want to maintain discipline, develop those small habits when you're mastering yourself, and embody, not just read about, which I did for decades, personal development. I didn't embody. I just had superficial learnings, felt great about it, but I never was deep, never went deep and embodied a lot of those characteristics that I had or that were important to me. And then, of course, have a purpose, stay connected through planning, reflection, alignment with your goals and your mission. And just like I had to do with my example of marriage counseling and just being humble. Humble yourself, set your ego aside. That's a huge thing when it comes to purpose. And then number 1 is of course, know your identity. Ground yourself in your faith and seek guidance from a higher power. Seek God. Stay true to your identity and values. And so once again, if anything resonates with you and you want to take your leadership to the next level, which can help you in your family, your business, and your faith, message me leadership or put it in the chat. And we'll go on to questions and answers at this point in time. And I have some frequently asked questions and answers, and then I'll go and see if I can answer a few while we still have some time here. One question is, how do these leadership skills specifically apply to the challenges of 2024 and beyond? Well, number 1, things are always changing. Distractions are always happening, more and more distractions, more and more marketing attempts to get both your attention and your money, your time, your resources. So it's important to tailor all these leadership skills to yourself specifically, to your schedule, to your life. For instance, when I first used to think of all these leadership skills, I'm like, oh, I can do that so easily. And I didn't consider in some of these things I need to do after work or outside work hours. And I have a family, a wife, 3 kids, active social life. And I didn't consider those things in, and now I do. So I have a more realistic idea, and I make way more progress than I do back a long time ago. So tailor them specifically, and also adapt in your effectiveness and navigating some of these uncertainties or challenges or unknowns. Because we all think today was scripted. It is not. Every day is a new creation that we create, that we can be a part of, that we can make decisions in. Nothing's set in stone. Question number 2, can you provide examples of how leaders can cultivate the skill of being driven and motivated? And there's a lot of different ways, and here's a few suggestions. One is to foster a positive mindset, set clear goals. And when you're doing this, you can come get help with coaching. You can look at resources online, YouTube, use AI apps and all different types of things to find these different areas. So there's a lot of different places you can go to find these things. Also, you want to affirm both verbally and physically what you want. and not what you've had. So if you want something in the future and to train your brain, to train your mindset, I believe it's called the reticular activating system, then you want to affirm verbally what you say out of your mouth and command it. And as we get that great example from God, when he created the world, God said, God said, God said. He didn't use pixie dust or duct tape to create the world or create anything. Excuse me. So use your voice, visualize, and physically get your body into it when you're saying these things. Hey, I want to achieve this goal. Not say I want to achieve the goal, but I am. I am statements are very powerful. Also, you want to have a resilient attitude towards setbacks, which means number one, you got to go out and do something. And then you got to learn from it and be willing to get back up if you feel that you've failed miserably, if you haven't learned anything. And if you look at everything that you do, you pretty much going to find some positives and then negatives out of things. But try to find those positive things that did well. And if you get used to trying new things, learning and innovating, guess what? If that's a part of your repertoire, all of a sudden, what's out there that you can't lean into and learn and grow? Seek other leadership examples. So a lot of examples online from books, from other coaches, mentors, people in your community, and also to learn about abundance. I had a fixed mindset and a scarcity mindset. Now I have more of an abundance mindset and a growth mindset. Those two things are important because everything I did in the past, I thought, well, gee, I didn't have much persistence. I'm like, I tried this. It's not going to work. And there's not enough money, not enough time out there, not enough people to do help me with my cause, not enough clients, not enough whatever, excuse. Quit making excuses. And then some other examples would be just the environment of people you hang around and how you can stay driven and motivated. Some of the three things that I've heard and have used that have helped the most in staying driven and motivated are the environment you're in, and that's what things are around you, are things distracting, whatever's around you. Also, the people you hang out with, your associations, the things you read and listen to that you input in here mostly. If it's mostly watching TikToks, sorry, you're going to get exactly what you're putting in here. And if you're mostly hanging around people that, as they say, you'll be most likely like the 5 people you hang around the most. Your income level will be right pretty much in the middle of all that, most likely. Question answer or Q&A number 3, that's a frequently asked question, is what practical steps can leaders take to enhance their ability to lead by example? Well, number one, just do it. You've got to start. You got to decide and take action. Serve unconditionally. We talked about that earlier. No, don't look for paybacks or keeping a checklist. Put others first. Take actions aligned with your values and serve others. That's one of the biggest things. When you serve others, it takes your mind off a lot of the problems you have, and you're sacrificing for the greater good. Like if you're a parent, or if you stay at work maybe a little bit longer to help finish a project, that's sacrificing in generally for the greater good. You can't maybe do that all the time. You got to have a balance, but make some commitments. And then, of course, to me, Jesus Christ was the ultimate example of serving people and putting himself last. Didn't make any mistakes, no sin. But he said, I'll take on the sin for the whole world currently, all our children moving forward, all the people 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now. He took on all those sins. And he said, I'm going to take care of those. So you don't have to worry about separation from God, where they want that loving relationship, God and Christ, through the Holy Spirit. So ultimate example of serving, and like a lot of people talk about, be Christ-like in many different ways. We'll never get to that, but if we have that mind and understanding, you're going to be probably in the right place and just loving your neighbor. And your neighbor is that dude that you just don't like. That's your neighbor, the one you don't like. It's easy to love people who are lovable. Let me see. How do leaders develop skill for mastering self, mind, and body? Because many times schedules are so busy or competing priorities. One thing, once again, mindfulness practice, meditation, prayer, journaling, quiet time, which means no devices, no apps, exercising, establish routines. That takes a little time. Develop small daily habits, and then put yourself first when it comes to mindfulness and to self-care. You have to put yourself first, because if you don't take care of yourself, just like in an airplane, when you're in an airline, they say, man, if in the event that we lose cabin pressure, put the mask on your oxygen mask on yourself first, because if you're passing out, there's no way you can help anybody else after that. So in some ways, in many ways, you have to take care of yourself first, build yourself up before you can give of the abundance that you have. And last frequently asked question before we see if we can take some audience questions are, what resources and strategies do you recommend for leaders to discover and stay connected to their purpose? Some of the strategies are, we talked about them before, reading books, watching YouTubes, internet searches and AI searches, stay connected to your purpose, morning and evening routines, set aligned goals with what you believe in, what your purpose, what your mission. And like I said, some of you might be business owner, you may have a little more control over what goes on during the day in your vocation. Some of you might be employees, feel like your hands are kind of tied. You still have choices within those confines, but then also too, what are you doing with your choices when you're outside of work? Are you letting the world run you and life run you, or are you running how you want your life to go? Nurture relationships. Remember, have conversations, find out what's going on in everybody else's minds and what's going on. Start to reflect and review healthy, value-based, have a healthy, value-based balance across all aspects of your life. And in that, that's going to be your faith, your fitness, your future, your fun, your friends, your finance. And I think I had another one in there. It's like 5 or 6 sevens of the F's that you could use with that. Yeah, I think I pretty much mentioned everything, faith and family, if I didn't. And then the other thing you can do is also you can reach out to me. And once again, if anything's resonating, or if you want to have a chat and discussion about what's going on with you, want to up-level your leadership skills, you can just type leadership in the chat or message me later. And I'm gonna see, I don't see where questions are. Yeah, my apologies. I'm having some of those technical difficulties I talked about earlier, but just message me. And I appreciate you being here. Life is exciting. I am 55 years old now, which is part of the reason why enough is enough of making excuses in my life. But you can have an exciting life. You can stop making those excuses, and you can use these leadership skills to help you in everything you do, your family, your business, and your faith. Have a great day, and thank you for being here.